The story of Insane La Orquestra Albany begins in the year 1969. A group of kids attended Darwin Elementary School, located at 3116 West Belden Avenue on the corner of Belden and Albany, had joined the Latin King Street Gang. But these kids had a different kind of rhythm. They started their own salsa band, calling it La Orquestra Albanies. The word orchestra means orchestra in Spanish, and the name itself translated to the Orchestra of Albany Street. By the year 1972, now high school aged, the group realized their passion for La Orquestra Albanies outweighed their loyalty to the Latin Kings. Led by Frizzy and Santiago, they left the gang and turned La Orquestra Albanies into an independent club. Despite the split, there was no bad blood with the Latin Kings. In fact, the Orchestra of Albany, or OAs, remained cordial and were even willing to back the Kings when needed. But their home base in Logan Square, just steps from Palmer Square Park, put them in direct conflict with the Gaylords, a white street gang determined to keep Puerto Ricans out of the area. After school, the OA kids would gather at the corner of Albany and Belden, a spot they proudly dubbed Darwin City. By 1974, the original members had aged out of high school and began recruiting younger kids from Darwin Elementary. These recruits were called the future Orquestra Albanies and were posted up at Fullerton and Kesey. Meanwhile, the senior OAs claimed Armitage and Kesey, a known stronghold of the Latin Kings. Another senior group held down the corner of Kesey and McLean. They were known as the Maniac Senior Orquestra Albanies. Despite the Maniac title, they weren't yet affiliated with the Maniac Alliance that would later include the Maniac Latin Disciples. At this point, the term was just a name. The future OAs had to earn their stripes at Fullerton and Kesey, a high-traffic spot that put them toe-to-toe with rival gangs. Pressure mounted as the Latin Kings tried to absorb them. This tension boiled over during a block party thrown by the OAs, where Latin Kings from Armitage and Kesey arrived wearing their war sweaters, a major sign of disrespect. Sugar Bear, an OA member, asked them to remove the sweaters. The Kings laughed it off and refused. When they tried to keep partying, the OAs reacted. A fight broke out. The OAs were winning until a Latin King pulled out a gun and shot an OA dead, then fled the scene. After that murder, leadership shifted to Annibal Half-Pint Morales. The killing sparked a war with the Latin Kings. Despite facing off against two major enemies, the Latin Kings and the Gaylords, the OAs stood their ground, earning their name as a force to be reckoned with on the streets. With their growing reputation, more future OAs emerged, establishing a new corner at Spalding and Schubert known as Sesame Street. These younger members proved even more ruthless, taking on gangs like the Palmer Street Gaylords, Lawndale Gaylords, Simon City Royals from both Drake and Wolfram and Christiana and Wellington, and the Taylor Jousters from Sawyer and Altgeld. By the mid-1970s, the senior OAs claimed turf at Kesey and Dickens. Their junior branch soon followed. Darwin School's yard was soon packed with OAs by the hundreds. Each corner operated with its own structure, fostering independence that was deeply respected among members. The OAs carried a certain charisma. They weren't afraid to clash with rivals, drawing in youth by the dozens. In their quest for more territory, they aligned with the Spanish Cobras and Imperial Gangsters, who also battled the Latin Kings and Gaylords. The OAs from Kesey and Dickens grew close to the Imperial Gangsters from Spalding and Armitage, calling themselves OA Gangsters to show allegiance. But eventually, their bond with the Chicago players from Kesey and Palmer grew stronger. So they changed their name again to Maniac Orquestra Albany Players. Together, the players and OAs waged war against the Yates Brothers Organization, the Ghetto Brothers Organization, and the Latin Kings from Cortland and Whipple. In the year 1978, a major alliance formed. The Spanish Cobras, Latin Disciples, Imperial Gangsters, and Latin Eagles united to create the United Latino Organization, or ULO. Their common enemy, the Latin Kings, and the United Five Organization, or UFO, which included the Gaylords and Taylor Jousters. Though the OAs were not official members, they were affiliated through their alliances. Also in 1978, tragedy struck. On June 1st, Half-Pint was gunned down by Latin Kings while walking to a liquor store near Armitage and Kesey. The OAs retaliated, killing Queen Lefty from Armitage and Kesey, marking the first documented killing of a Latin queen in gang history. By now, Darwin City stretched from Logan Boulevard to Armitage and Kedzie all the way to California Avenue. That expansion made Armitage and Kedzie a hot war zone. Eventually, the OAs couldn't hold that corner. Later that year, they expanded into the suburbs. They moved into Waukegan, also known as Browntown, and into Summit, Illinois, at 52nd and Harlem. The OAs were among the first Chicago gangs to claim suburban turf and successfully ruled Summit for several years. As the year 1979 rolled in, the OAs officially became Insanes. Their close ties with the Spanish Cobras brought them into the Folk Alliance, which the Cobras sponsored. Through the 1980s, the OAs thrived in Logan Square and branched into Albany and Grace and Irving Park. Puerto Rican migration surged in the neighborhood during this decade, growing the OA ranks even further. Then came the year 1992. Tensions with the Latin lovers reached a boiling point. Although the Insanes and Maniacs were at odds on and off, the OAs held a personal vendetta against the Latin lovers. In November, two Latin lovers named Ace and Flaco approached the OAs to settle the beef, but as soon as they arrived, they were shot dead by a young OA. That single act lit a fire across Chicago. The Maniacs were furious. War erupted near Clemente High School. In the chaos, two Latin lovers gunned down Luto C of the Spanish Cobras while he was running to retrieve a shotgun. He was shot in the head. The conflict between the Insanes and Maniacs eventually fizzled out, but the bitterness remained, especially between the OAs and the Latin lovers. In that same year, 1992, the Insane family officially solidified. Naturally, Orchestra Albany took their place within it. But 1993 would bring yet another war, this time with the Imperial Gangsters. On September 17, 1993, the Imperial Gangsters shot and killed Avilio Lopez near Duke's Hot Dogs by firing into his abdomen. The act sealed a permanent rift between the two groups. By the mid-1970s, La Orquestra Albany's presence radiated far beyond Darwin City. Their distinct tags and Latin-style graffiti decorating walls from Fullerton and Kedzie all the way to Spalding and Schubert, known as Sesame Street to the OAs. The younger members, the future Orchestra Albanies, were relentless and ruthless, often overpowering older OA sets in clashes with rival crews. The Palmer Street Gaylords, Lawndale Gaylords, Simon City Royals, their corners at Drake and Wolfram, as well as Christiana and Wellington, and the Taylor Jousters from Sawyer and Altgel. In 1975, Richard King Cobra Medina coined the Insane moniker, aligning the Spanish Cobras with the OA network into what became the Insane Familia, a powerful folk nation faction that embodied cohesion and retaliation capability on the north side. The Spanish Cobras formally sponsored Orchestra Albany's integration into this newly forming alliance, cementing their transition from local gang to major player within Chicago's gang ecosystem. Throughout the late 1970s and into the 80s, the OAs expanded across Chicago, establishing new sections. One key turf opened at Albany and Grace in Irving Park, fueled by increased Puerto Rican migration to Logan Square and adjacent neighborhoods. These demographic shifts significantly bolstered OA recruitment and influence throughout the period. As the Insane Familia structure solidified in the early 1990s, alliances hardened. The Maniac Latin disciples split officially from the Insanes, igniting violent feuds over corner control and street justice that escalated across neighborhoods like Lawndale, Hermosa, and Logan Square. The OAs, mounted on their ULO affiliations and Cobra backing, were pulled deeper into these wars.